From writing an original song for The Wheel of Time Season 3, to reading a ton of books, and being in and out of town, this was a very eventful month. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem, and let's talk a little bit about March 2025 in review. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2 and 3, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the newly released Blessed Be the Eternal, the Edan Trilogy main theme for Philip Chase's wonderful fantasy trilogy. So, I wanted to do these monthly wrap-ups a little bit more often because, I spoke to a few of you and you're right. It's nice to be able to take stock and see what worked reading-wise, what didn't. And it's always a really fun way of kind of talking with you all and seeing how your month went, anything eventful happened to you. It's like an expansion on the weekly reading roundup that I do every week. So I'm going to dive right into everything that happened because this was quite a busy month, everybody. So if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe. And now on to the books. So in the month of March, I was in and out of town. I was working on big music projects and I was trying to read where I could. Somehow, I managed to read 3 complete novels, all very involved reads, and 6 partial novels. So let's talk a little bit about these books. So the first one I completed was Deadhouse Gates, Book 2 of Malazan, Book of the Fallen. This is part of our official channel read-along. We're reading the 10 very big books of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, kind of because it's an intimidating series for many, including myself, let's face the facts, and it's always nice to be able to read with friends old and new. So we are now going to be starting Book 3, Memories of Ice. Linked below is the FABLE app and also the Discord where you could join and the read-along calendar. But I have absolutely loved this. It is a book that has cemented for me that Malazan is something that is going to become a top fantasy series of all time. I can already tell. If this is, if it gets better from here, then I automatically know this is going to be, because that book tore me apart in the best of ways, and to the point where I did a standalone book review of it, which I'm linking up here. I'm doing that for every single Malazan book I read, and for some choice other books, because I don't do a whole lot of book reviews, but maybe that will change, and that will lead to another question I want to ask you all later in the video. But safe to say, I absolutely love it. 5 stars all the way. The second book I got a chance to read was 1984 by George Orwell. Now, it was written in 1949, one of the last books, if not the last book he wrote before he passed. It is prescient for the times. We've all heard Big Brother is always watching. It's kind of become colloquial in the pop culture, right? So is there much to be gained from reading it now in this day and age? Well, let me tell you, it is. And it is in contention for Book of the Year for me. It is very hard to say what could top a book like this, because not only is it prescient for the times, but it is so specifically prescient. It's also one of the darkest books I've ever read, maybe the darkest. And I was reading Deadhouse Gates, you guys, at the same time, and I still felt like this was darker because the totality of control that the government exerts on the people is just so complete. It's incredible, but it is a brutal dystopian read. But I gotta say, I loved it. 5 stars for me. I know it sounds like I'm giving everything 5 stars, but I promise you that's not how I typically roll. This has just been an exceptional reading month, you guys. So I'm very happy with what I've read, and I'm really looking forward to continuing on the journey, reading more George Orwell. So if you think of any others that you think I should read, I know Animal Farm is on deck for me. I have that on my shelf. So let me know if anything else comes to mind, because I want to dive headfirst into George Orwell now after reading this book. The third book I got a chance to read is Book 1 of Ryan Cahill's The Bound and the Broken. Now, this one I've heard was a very kind of a lightweight book in terms of, it's very tropey, very familiar. It reads kind of like Wheel of Time 2.0. So is there much to be gained from reading a book like this, a series like this? Let me tell you, I absolutely loved this. I thought it was far better than I expected it to be. I think the familiar stuff is familiar in a fun way. Like, it's comfort food, you know. It's not something that is necessarily breaking new ground in terms of fantasy, but it's written well. The characters are interesting, and I liked where the story went, even if it was predictable. So I would say I'd probably give this like a 3.75 stars out of 5. So this was my lowest ranking, but in the context of even a 3.75 star, it was a very good read, you know. Just something has to rank a little lower, right? And I would say this one broke the least new ground, but it was still a very enjoyable read. And I'm excited because I've heard it keeps getting better from here. And I'm excited to read the next book alongside a few of you. Of course, that's also on the Discord and the FABLE app. And we're going to be reading that in April. Of Darkness and Light, I think, is book 2. Hey, everyone. I'm so sorry about that. I had to do a quick cut-in because I forgot the one book I read this month by my favorite author of all time, Stephen King. So you know it's been a long day. And maybe I need some more coffee or something. But let's, without further ado, jump into that one. I got a chance to read The Night Shift in full by Stephen King. So this was written in 1978. It came out right after The Shining. It was his first short story collection, and a lot of people say it was his best. So how did it stack up for me? If you want to see a more long form discussion about that, you can see that in my previous weekly reading roundup linked up here. But, you know, honestly, I liked it. I wasn't crazy about it though. I thought it was good, but I don't think it kind of blew my hair back as much as I expected it to. Now, don't get me wrong. There were stories like The Ledge, The Mangler, and Jerusalem's Lot that did blow my hair back. I thought they were phenomenal. And the character work was good. And just the horror. Stephen King really makes you feel the fear of those particular different scenarios. Jerusalem's Lot is kind of... a spin-off of the Salem's Lot. So very, very cool story. You're seeing it through letters rather than, action sequences as much. The Mangler, I thought, was like classic King in terms of the horror, taking an inanimate object and making it scary. And The Ledge is more situational. I don't want to give too much away, but if you want a more in-depth review, you could check out that video. But yeah, I thought the rest of the stories were okay. There might have been one or two more that I really enjoyed. But none of them, other than those three, really made me feel like, wow, this is something insane. You Like It Darker, his most recent short story collection, actually hit me harder right here. And I wonder if it's just like Stephen King got better at character work as he went. That's at least my personal opinion, take it with a grain of salt. I would love to know what you think if you've read it as well. And if you disagree, please feel free to let me know. Like, I always welcome all points of view. It's always a safe space to talk about books, whether we agree or not. But yeah, that was the 4th book I got a chance to read. Let's talk about the partial ones, because man, it's a doozy when it comes to partial reads this month. But the first one I want to talk about is Ship of Magic. This is Live Ship Traders, book 1 by Robin Hobb, part of her broader Realm of the Elderlings 16-book series. I love the Farseer trilogy, and I got a chance to read those with Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Books and also John from Disquiet and Dragons, both dear friends of mine now, friends of the channel, and I've linked them both below. And we really had a blast, and so we've been kind of making our way through Ship of Magic. Now, with all these other reads, of course, I kind of got a little bit sidelined going in and out of town. It's harder to just sit and dive into one book at a time. So I'm about the 65% mark, but I've read 65% of like an 800-page book, so I feel very accomplished in that regard. I think Ellie has finished now. John is a little bit behind me, but we're taking our time with it. I think with Robin Hobb, she writes slow and deliberately, and so it is best not to rush the process. I feel like that with some books. They're very fast reads. Some, they're deliberately slow, but they reward you in other ways that fast reads can't reward you, and vice versa. So balance is the spice of life. So so I've been really enjoying that book so far. I think the character work in it is far better than the Farseer trilogy. I do like the characters as memorable characters like Fitz and the Fool more from the Farseer trilogy, if that makes sense. So I'm not blown away by it yet, but I'm really enjoying the ride. And I'm excited to see where this goes from here. So I'll definitely be picking up the other two with Ellie and possibly John as well. I think we'll try to figure out, just kind of how all that's going to roll depending on everybody's schedules. But that is also on deck to kind of complete. The second book is James Michener's Alaska, a historical fiction epic, an 1,100-page epic. So, of course, I could only read like 200 pages of it this month. But that's going to continue on into April. Think of it as, finding out the cultural, the anthropological aspects of Alaska kind of from 29,000 years ago till present day, and also it forming as a landmass, and also the Bering Strait. You know, the idea of it being 60 miles across, but when the first humans are crossing from Siberia to Alaska, they don't see it as, oh, I see this is a strip of land. This is just land that continues. And they just kept following it because they wanted to find more food. You know, theoretically, some of this is theorized, but James Michener has an uncanny ability to bring this stuff to life in a way that feels like you're reading a novel, you know, and you're also getting a lot of historical context too. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm about up to the 1700s now, with the Russian expeditions across the Bering Sea. So really, really interesting stuff. The third book I kind of dipped into is Book 2 of the Wars of Light and Shadow series by Jenny Wirtz called Ships of Merrier. Now, you know how I said about Robin Hobb, like, best to take your time with it? I feel even more so with Jenny Wirtz's writing style and also the type of story, because Wars of Light and Shadow, for those of you who don't know, it's basically about these two half-brothers. One represents light, one represents shadow, but nothing is as it seems. And they're going to need to join forces together and be united in order to save, you know, Aethera. But the problem is they're having some enmity issues. So it's kind of a very nuanced take on their relationships, the people that they interact with. But also, Jenny Wirtz's writing style is very complex. So it's kind of like you sip and savor a cognac or something, right? You don't like chug it. At least, you know, most people don't. Maybe when you're at a frat party or something in college, but you get the idea what I'm trying to say. I always try to do these analogies. I don't really know if they land at all, but you get the idea. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, but I haven't made my way too far into it. I think a couple hundred pages as well. And it's a tome, you know, it's two books in one, Ships of Merrier and War Host of Vastmark. So it's book 2 and 3 in one volume. So I'm going to try to finish off that volume in April, but I'm really enjoying it. I think I like it even more than the first one already in just those couple hundred pages. So it's nice. The next book I read was A Journey Thrice Begun by Sean Bobby Kerr. This is his fantasy debut, and think of it as kind of whimsical fantasy with a charm and a humor, kind of a lighthearted humor, an acerbic kind of humor, but then also this very, very much a darkness, you know. And Everett Dwyer is the main character, and he's trying to propose to Isolde at Charing Night, which is kind of a tradition in this particular town. And things don't go necessarily according to plan, and the story unfolds from there. I've been really enjoying myself so far. I'm about 65% of the way through as well. Been taking my time with this one, but not for lack of enjoyment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Everett and the crew. Now, these next two are completely off the beaten path because they kind of found me rather than I found them. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Like, sometimes you find reads that you like, and sometimes they find you. I don't know. So I found Ray Kurzweil is an author I've been wanting to read for a while, and he had published a book called The Singularity is Near in 2005, talking about when the singularity could be expected. He's updated it since, called The Singularity is Nearer. And I wanted to investigate that one. I actually tried this one on audio, and I found that nonfiction audio sometimes works for me. So I was very taken by this book. I think it's so interesting to see where humanity's going from here. The whole AI crisis and kind of how that's going to change society irrevocably. I think it's always good to, you know, expect the worst, hope for the best kind of thing. And it's always nice to know, like, where is the cutting edge science actually, like, outside of the tech aspect of it and outside of the, you know, special interest groups and things like that have a vested interest in using it for ill. I'm just talking about, you know, where is the tech going from here? So it's interesting to hear a scientist as prescient for the times as Ray Kurzweil talking about that. I'm about, I think, 50% of the way through, making my way slowly, but enjoying the ride, really, quite a bit. Actually, it's interesting. One of the theories that he describes in here, I just have to mention, is he mentions that humans have not evolved to think of incremental improvements as much as they are evolved to think of catastrophes. So it's like a biological thing. And so why news cycles typically have more negative things, because it's what we respond to as humans. And we actually have a trouble tracking incremental progress in our own lives and the world around us. So even if certain aspects of the world are getting better, it's harder to actually see it. So that's really interesting, and I hope that is a nice balm on a very uncertain time for you all. You know, that idea that like, hey, there are certain things in the background maybe that are getting better that we're not just privy to, or we're just not able to see. And even when it's dark, there's always a light. And the light can be community. The light can be what we find in ourselves. So just thought I would kind of put that out there for you all. The last book is Chaos: Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. I had to read that title because it's so long I was never going to remember it. But very interesting book. I got it at the bookstore recently and I just kind of fell into it. I've always been fascinated by the darker side of the 60s because we always hear about the hippie movement. We don't hear about some of the other aspects as much. Of course, Charles Manson and everything that comes with that is a very well told story and kind of well known story, but it also talks about connections with the government. It also talks about how, you know, there was a seedier underbelly to the celebrity of the 60s, the late 60s especially, that, you know, the public was not privy to. And it really goes through it unearths some pretty shocking things in that book. So I've read about 50% or so. I've kind of set it aside for now, but I will pick it up. I am enjoying it. It's not blowing my hair back, but I am enjoying it. It's a good book. Worthy read if you're interested in that sort of thing. Let's talk a little bit about the channel itself. So this month, unfortunately, you guys, was probably the lowest growth month in the history of the channel. Now, I've had this channel for about almost a year, and actually my first month ever on BookTube, it somehow grew faster than it grew this month. So this channel only got 26 subs this month. And you know, these things happen. Like, I don't really put too much stock into the numbers, but I do feel like I owe it to you to always tell you how the channel is doing and kind of talk about, hey, maybe there's ways we can make it grow, because ultimately, you know, we've all been having a blast through this community, Discord, Fable, finding new people to read books with together through that. So, you know, I always want to see, like, is there anything I can do to better the channel? Let me know. I honestly love constructive criticism, because ultimately I want this to be a place that we can all enjoy. So I'm not sweating it too much, but I always like to put it out there to let you know if something is going great, and if something is going not so great, we can figure out a way together and kind of foster that community. So I did release 11 videos, you guys. So I released a lot of content this month, and I also did one live stream, which was a 1K subscriber celebration on the channel, which was really wonderful. So we are now at 80 subscribers as of this taping. So it's so great to see new people joining the fold and joining these read-alongs, and even just lurking, you know, in the comments or in the Discord or anything like that. Whatever benefit you get, please feel free to participate as little or as much as you'd like. I mean, hey, I told you guys I was only going to read one read-along, and now I'm reading 4. I don't know how that happened, but sometimes when the feeling is right and the people are really good company to read with, gotta do it, right? So, and then I got a chance to guest just last week, actually, as of this taping, on Saturday with Chaz, Bookish Chaz, a wonderful channel if you haven't checked it out, on his Chaz and Friends segment, where we just talked about anything. We kept a free-flowing discussion about books, about music, about life. And he is a wonderful person, great channel, definitely check him out. And yeah, I just had a blast with him, and I really always have a blast talking with him and other people I've gotten a chance to interact with here on this wonderful BookTube space. So let's talk a little bit about channel goals for April. I'm not going to talk numbers as much as I'm going to talk about philosophy, because I think it's something interesting to kind of think about. So the first thing I wrote is read more intentionally, 2 to 3 hours a day if I can, and less screen time. I will say I had wanted to do this in February, March, and it just kind of got away from me. I did get a chance to read maybe an hour a day or maybe hour and a half, which is still good. But I would like to be more intentional about that kind of stuff. So that's a goal, personal goal for me. If I have to time block, sometimes I use a timer, a stopwatch, and that actually helps. I know it sounds regimented, but I always find it's liberating to have limitations sometimes, because within the confines of that thing, you can do anything and you can be more present. So that's my personal thing, and that always helps me. So I just figured I'd share that. The second thing I want to do is I want to have some book reviews on the channel, but my question to you, and I'd love for you to leave it in the comments, let me know, is would you prefer standalone book reviews, a whole video dedicated to it, like how I did with 1984 this month, how I did with Malazan, the Malazan videos, or would you prefer to be like, hey, these are 3 books in one review or 2 books in one review, what would you prefer the most? Let me know, because I might vary that up based on your responses, and your responses will directly help kind of shape what happens with the channel. So keep me posted on that. I would love to hear from you. Thank you, for your input, of course. The other thing I want to do is, I have had very specific topics on this channel so far, meaning stuff that is related to the read along, stuff that is related to book reviews of things I'm reading, right? Very specific things. But of course, not everybody's interested in that stuff. Not everybody wants to read those books. So I also want to intersperse it with some more broad content, and not just top 10 favorite this and top 10 this and that. I also want to do BookTube related discussions. So, kind of maybe the dark and light side of BookTube, maybe something about the publishing industry as I see it, and how it is mimicking the, missteps of the music industry. But it is, of course, much behind film and TV and music now. So it is, it's still in a much better spot than those. But, drawing parallels to that kind of a thing. I don't know, just I could use your help, of course, in thinking of other topics. I will continue to try to think of unique things I could put on the channel, but that would appeal to a wide variety of people. I also want to do some adaptation related content more this month, because that is an expertise of mine, having written for a bunch of adaptations. And then also I know how that industry works, and I can kind of keep you all posted in a way that speaks from direct experience. So that is another thing I want to have on the channel. And the other thing is more live streams with other booktubers. So I got some scheduled already. I'll be announcing those in April as I go. But I want to do more of those, because that's some of my favorite stuff, is like seeing you all in the chat and just chatting all together about the books we love. So expect some more live streams in the near and far future, my friends. So let's talk a little bit about on the music front, because this was probably one of the most monumental music front related months. So the first thing I should mention is The Hills of Tanchico, an original song I wrote for Wheel of Time Season 3, the Amazon show, is out on Sony Records. It is released on Lorne Balfe's soundtrack album. So I was very grateful to have the sole credit there as the composer. And then also, it is going to debut in episode 6. I can finally mention that. So it is very exciting. It maybe as of this taping, episode 6 is already out, but keep a lookout for that. I would be very curious to hear what you think about how it sounds in the show. And I'm leaving the link of the song as well below in case you haven't checked it out yet. But that was, I got a chance to work with the actors. I phoned in to Prague, and I got to work with the main actors in the show, and like coach them through the parts and work with the executive producer, the writer, the director of the episode. It was really a dream come true in a lot of ways. And I have to thank Lorne Balfe for that, for giving me the opportunity to really spread my wings and fly there. So it was a really wonderful thing. The second thing is I went to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, for a week. And I got a chance to not only rep myself as a composer, but also rep myself as a team member of Cursed Magic, my wife's game studio. They are making magical girl kind of games. One is a Sailor Moon inspired and Japanese anime inspired game called The Magical Rejects. So I worked on a main theme song for that is very anime-esque. So I'm very excited to kind of be able to show more of that as I go. But that was a really fun project, and getting to work with my wife directly is really fun. I'm just really enjoying it. It's like some people are like, oh, you work with your spouse, that might be like tough or whatever. We've just had a blast. So it's been really great. That's probably been one of the highlights of the month. The other thing that happened was I had a single release of my own. The song is called The Answer. I wrote it about 10 years ago, you guys, and I finally mustered up the courage to put myself out there and be vulnerable and talk about just the idea that sometimes the answers we're searching for and the problems are found within. And it kind of harkens back to my kind of pop rock days in playing in bands. So I played the slide guitar on it, played the bass, my friend played drums on it, recorded vocals at another friend's studio. So feel free to check that out. I would love for you to check it out and save it if you want, share it, and all that kind of thing. So that is out now, and I've been actively pitching on other projects as well. So we shall see how those go. Some are adaptation related, some are non-adaptation related, but I will keep you posted either way. So as I like to always say, If you like this kind of video, I would so appreciate a like and a subscribe, and please feel free to share it with other booktubers, you know, on Reddit. If you feel free, like if you want to share it in any of the subreddits or anything, you're active there and you want to share it. It's just kind of harder for me to do that because I don't want to self-promote. But if you feel compelled and you want to do that, I would be eternally grateful. You know, and there's ways you could support the channel below. In other ways, if you'd like, you could buy me a book on my Amazon wish list or what have you. There's never any pressure with any of this stuff, but I just like to let you know the options are there in case you so choose. And I just really appreciate you all being here. So I would love to finish this off by asking you the question that I like to ask every monthly wrap up, which is, how was your month? That's the most important thing to me. I like to know, what are you up to? What did you read? What did you like? What did you dislike? Anything happened to you that you like to share that is an accomplishment that you're especially proud of? Like, I feel like, let's use the comment section to lift each other up. Let's celebrate each other. I don't want to just blather about stuff that happened to me. I want to hear about yours as well. So I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Thank you for being here. You're wonderful. I appreciate you. I appreciate this community. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. As always, take care.